have his guys back. In this case, the guy being Carson Wentz. I think he wants to make Carson Wentz feel better about missing out on the Super Bowl and possibly being the MVP of the Super Bowl. But yes, whether or not he intended to or not, this is incredibly offensive to Nick Foles. I mean, what it does is it completely undercuts the amazing individual performance that Nick Foles put on, not just in the Super Bowl, but the NFC Championship game. To just assume, I mean, he's not saying anyone could do it, but to even assume that Carson Wentz would have done the same thing acts like what Nick Foles has done here is common occurrence, at least on the Eagles roster. Nick Foles, first of all, in the NFC Championship game, completed 78% of his passes for almost a perfect passer rating, 141 passer rating. Then he goes to the Super Bowl and outduels the greatest quarterback of all time, who happened to, in that game, throw for 500 yards. And just to put a little extra cherry on top, he caught a touchdown as well in the Super Bowl. I don't know how Carson Wentz could have possibly performed better than Nick Foles, and to say he could have done what Nick Foles did here is completely insulting to real life, to the facts, to what Nick Foles did.
Go ahead, Max.
Well, I see where you're coming from, Will. I don't think that's the way it was intended either. It could be taken that way. In fact, Stephen A., I read in USA Today's For the Win an item by a Stephen Ruiz, Stephen A. Smith, that I think answers the question that you have: why didn't Butler play, right? Like, what happened? All of a sudden he didn't play. And the idea is that, and Belichick did something similar when he was D coordinator with the Giants in Super Bowl 25 against the Bills, but in reverse. He wanted to dare Nick Foles to beat them. That was the idea. You put defensive packages out that tempt the Eagles not to run so much, but to use Nick Foles to try to beat you through the air. That's smart. I mean, we knew that would be part of the game plan going in, right? Go ahead, Nick Foles. Let's see you beat the Patriots down the field. He did it. For that, he deserves enormous credit, because he was dared to do it, and he did it. So I don't think it's taking away credit from Nick Foles. It may be folly. It may just be incorrect, because had Carson Wentz been in the game, maybe a different defensive package is put out. Probably there is. And maybe the Patriots wind up winning. I mean, the game between two pretty evenly matched teams came down to a play, came down to one score, as all Patriots Super Bowls come down. So Wentz is clearly a better quarterback than Foles, but that doesn't mean swapping them out means Wentz wins. More than disrespectful to Foles, what I think this does is put enormous pressure on Carson Wentz, a man who already faces more pressure than any player in the NFL next season. He's the wunderkind. He's the guy who looks like he could be the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers. He's on a stacked team that's the odds-on favorite in the NFC to get back to the Super Bowl. We all know that rarely happens, where a team goes back twice in a row. His backup just won the Super Bowl. I mean, where is there more pressure than on Carson Wentz anywhere in the NFL? And I think Pederson unwittingly just ratcheted that up even a little bit more.
Well, that doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about here, because the reality is clear. It wasn't disrespectful to Nick Foles at all. It was reality, Will Kane, Mr. Emotional. I can't believe I have to reel you in emotionally. It's the second day in a row. I don't know what the hell is going on with you right now. Maybe you're watching a little bit too much Oprah or
just
something.
Just because you call it so doesn't make it so. I'm just saying, I'm the logical one. Let's be clear.
No, you're not Spock Kane. You wasn't that yesterday. You're not being that today. You're a little bit caught up emotionally. Here's the reality. What did Nick Foles really do throughout his career? Pederson is watching this man play all year long. He's watching him practice all year long. First of all, he was lucky to be on the team after the years that he had in St. Louis, even though he was contaminated by Jeff Fisher. Not really his fault. Everybody that goes along with Jeff Fisher seems to have a bad time at the quarterback spot. But my point to you is that, nevertheless, that was Nick Foles' recent history. So he comes there. He has to come into the season. Into the starting spot once Carson Wentz goes down against the Los Angeles Rams. He played all right, but he only completed like 56% of his passes during that period of time. All I'm saying to you is this. Nick Foles can really throw the football. We all understand that. But in the same breath, is he a world beater? He's never really been a world beater. Even a year when he threw 27 touchdowns with just 2 interceptions under Chip Kelly, he still wasn't perceived as a quote-unquote world beater. He came out, he had a surreal postseason run. We get that. But there's levels to this. And he's not on the level of Carson Wentz. And what Pederson was doing was simply reminding everybody, we deeply appreciate what Nick Foles has done for us. We had him on the team for a reason. He was a great backup. He can start for a lot of teams in this world. We're in this league. We understand him. We respect him. We appreciate him. But make no mistake, don't you even spend a second thinking that he's on the same level as Carson Wentz.
Okay.
That's
you know what this is about?
I got this.
This is about the Cowboys.
Oh, get out of here.
This is about Dak and the conversation we had yesterday. And yes.
Y'all just spinning over here to win this debate. Let me explain to you something, okay? I did not make for 1 second in this argument, in this segment, I did not spend one moment suggesting that Nick Foles is better than Carson Wentz.
I know that.
So, well, but you got a little emotional because that's what you spent your time
No,
debating.
use my words.
No,
I did not say you.
No.
I say emotional. You don't get to say that back at me.
Listen to this, okay?
You don't get to say that back at me.
You're projecting. You and Doug Pederson are doing two things. You're projecting who Carson Wentz was over the regular season into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl.
Fair enough.
I'm the one living in reality. I know what Nick Foles did. And I know for a matter of fact that Carson Wentz didn't have one single game in the 2017 season as impressive as what Nick Foles did in the NFC Championship game. Not one game. You can go, hey, take your time. We can revisit this tomorrow.
Don't give me, it's not just about numbers. It's not just about numbers. I mean, did you see Minnesota that day? Did you see them coming off that high, that robbery against that miracle, rather?
78% of his passes he completed. Hold on, Max. Let me just, as long as we're projecting out, let me just explain to you something.
Sure.
The Super Bowl has a littered history of MVP candidate and MVP winning quarterbacks who went by the wayside in the big game, from Jim Kelly to Joe Theismann, guys who threw 4 picks after winning MVP. I could add Cam Newton to that list, too.
Yes, you could.
So you can't sit here and tell me...
Against an elite defense, sure.
You can't tell me, therefore, that Carson Wentz's great regular season would have meant a great Super Bowl. Nick Foles did it.
And Max, it's about the team
Max, the one point that you make I like is, if Carson Wentz is in, that changes everything. Not just Bill Belichick's game plan. It changes Doug Pederson's game plan. And do you know what else it does? They're the favorites with Carson Wentz. That rips that underdog mask off the entire team. Their entire ethos is gone.
Carson Wentz suffered what was described by the orthopedic surgeon as an RG3 level injury. I was in LA in the stadium that day. He threw 4 more passes after the injury. That dude is when you say he's done nothing as impressive, that dude is something else. But one quick thing about Nick Foles, I'm with you on this, Will. Whatever you want to say about how he projects going forward, he had a 27 touchdown, 2 interception season. He has won a Super Bowl MVP, and can't remember a quarterback with that kind of resume already being disrespected as much as Nick Foles has been disrespected in the media, including by me.
Oh, please, disrespect
this is
it,
please. For me right now, we gotta go.
Just show
I live in reality.
We gave you credit where credit is due, but now you're being disrespected.
Roll the bump.
Stop
Still to come. Rick Pitino reacts to Louisville sanctions being upheld by the NCAA. You don't want to miss what he had to say. But first, Kawhi Leonard has been cleared to play by the Spurs, but he's a no-go for now. How does this make Greg Popovich look and the Spurs? We'll get into it.